with Broken Crown.
All right, Artosis. I got to tell you, man, I could not be more excited to
Mm.
get into this finals. And what a great story this is with these two players. They're so talented. I think we could be happy no matter who takes this. And we're going to really figure out who has truly mastered Infernal versus Infernal in this current state.
Yeah. This is going to be very exciting. I'm not exactly sure what the score is going to look like. I do again feel like Parting is going to be in good shape for this since he hasn't had to show that much. But it's great to see these two old school pro gamers meet up again here in Stormgate and see who's gotten better over the years.
All right, guys, we're going to hop into our game now. This is the grand finals here for EGCTV, the first ever major StarCraft tournament that's been open to the public. Over here in the top right in the red, the former StarCraft 2 world champion. He is PartinG. And just and his opponent down here in the bottom left, over here in the blue, one of the most talented players in so many different professional gaming titles. He is VortiX.
Yeah, it's a fantastic matchup, honestly. VortiX, it was a really sad thing, honestly, when he left the StarCraft 2 scene, went over to Heroes. And, obviously he's moved on from there to Age 4 at this point, but he's always been such a talent and with such a fun style as well. How is that going to match up against someone who honestly has a very similar style? They're playing the same faction here with Infernal versus Infernal. And honestly, the builds look really similar right now as well.
Yeah, one big feature of this map is the fact that at your natural expansion, there are trees that can be torn down with workers or other units with other abilities later on. So that makes it a little bit trickier if you're going to fast expand. There's also been a lot of debate right now of, can you really just go for a shrine right away, or does it make more sense to try to push out on the map with the gaunts, with your brutes, and try to kill the creeps? Because with that gaunt ability and fest, we know that can allow you to accumulate a lot of additional fiends. So there's a lot of different ideas at play here. Immediately, both players are approaching this very differently. You've got VortiX here going for the speed creeps, while on the other hand, PartinG comes down here with a brute split in two, sending these fiends out there and trying to get a kill.
Yeah, that actually goes a little bit better for VortiX so far. PartinG actually going for a Shroud Stone in the center of the map. He's going to go after these resource camps as opposed to the speed camps that have been so popular throughout this tournament.
Yeah, so this is awesome, man. Very different ideas. I would say that what we see VortiX do is generally what you've seen a lot of other streamers and tournament players go for, but this is a very different creep camp setup here for PartinG. Like already taking out the two middle spiders, then taking the spider base out just outside of his expansion, but now we have the push coming in here from VortiX, and this is a moment where you get to do your own scouting. He does come in here and force a cancel. Two brutes are going to come down. It looks like the imp could get cornered, and it is killed.
Yeah, that's a great moment right there for VortiX. So VortiX, it seems like he's opening up with a little bit of an advantage here. He didn't lose an imp to that initial brute split. And look here, like he's killed an imp off. He's forced to cancel on the expansion. He's getting good scouting done. It does feel like VortiX has a bit of a lead in this first game.
Yeah, VortiX looking pretty strong right now. We've got PartinG moving into the middle of the map, and it looks like he's going to try to go in for this vision camp down here in the bottom right. And in fact, VortiX is going in the same direction. Now, when you have these dogfights in the middle of the map, you've got to protect your gaunts. The fiends can try to jump onto the gaunts. The gaunts are very brittle. They're very slow, but they're essential when you're going to be creeping on the map, because without infest, you can't accumulate more of those fiends. And so it looks like that's going to be a pretty big victory for VortiX, getting the vision camp and possibly the speed camp just to the right of that.
It really feels like VortiX has a bit of map control here, right? He's getting his expansion up. That should be up a bit quicker than PartinG's. He's clearing more camps, like you just pointed out. He has more gaunts on the map. The thing is, PartinG is a very creative player. He kind of can look at a position like this and know what he should do to try to come back. And he is sending a lot of fiends across the map, but it looks like as these brutes pop out, he has to pull those back as well. So not really finding any damage.
Looks like VortiX will now go to the 6 o'clock position and take the heal camp out. Nobody has an expansion that's finished yet, but VortiX has at least started his. It does seem like VortiX has a little bit more map control. That shrine's done now. He's got 2 imps mining from that. And so I guess the only thing the party can do, as far as I can tell, is try to play catch up and expand himself.
Well, is he going to be able to do that with already a Doombringer coming across the map? right? That's actually a little bit scary right there. If you're dropping out 8 gaunts, your opponent better have his gaunts sitting there ready to engage that. So it feels like VortiX continuing to just plow forward in this game, really dictating the pace of it.
The big Luminite node at the natural is very close to the cliff's edge. And so we see a lot of drops where they'll try to hit the workers that are mining down there. But in this case, we're going to see the Doombringer just come in here. And this is going to be very dangerous because once you have these imps infested, if you can get enough damage off, it does cause a kind of a chain reaction here. It looks like PartinG's handling this pretty well. I don't think he's lost an imp just yet. And so this is going to be a very good hold here for PartinG.
Yeah, he has enough fiends there. He brings up his own gaunts as well. And of course, it's not even the full 8 gaunt in there, right? He's got some of his own fiends. And not really finding damage as of yet. Looks like PartinG going to load up his own Doombringer, start to send it across the map, but leaves his fiends here to try to defend.
That's going to come back in here now. There is a third base being taken as VortiX is keeping the pressure on here. That Doombringer for PartinG is going to be headed down, but for now, we got to see how many of these workers can actually be picked off. VortiX is doing a good job keeping this position out here. Meanwhile, the drop comes in, but it looks like there should be enough fiends. I think he can actually force us back, and that means PartinG is going to be further and further behind.
Well, finally, we have a tower coming down on both sides, so that is a great way to shut this down. And in fact, PartinG loses his Doombringer. VortiX going to just barely get out there. So once again, I'm looking at this game. VortiX is taking a third base. He's destroyed the Doombringer. He saved his own Doombringer. It really does seem like he's in control here.
Yeah, well, he played a really solid early game, and it just seems like it's very difficult now for PartinG to keep up, and especially losing that Doombringer. The Doombringer basically allows you to pin your opponent to their base. We have another shot that was close. You got to be careful that it's not normal to have a tower in the middle of the map. It's a very easy way to end up losing a weakened Doombringer. But with map control, we're going to see that the Shroud Stone destroyed, the creeping continue to ramp up here for VortiX. And mathematically, Artosis, I don't really know how you get out of this position. This looks very unwinnable for PartinG right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty tricky. Like he just isn't going to have any map control. Maybe with this new Doombringer, he can run VortiX around a little bit. Like that's a reasonable idea. And of course, I mean, you can tech up further, right? Like maybe he can turtle for a little bit and say, okay, I am a bit behind, but maybe we can get into some higher tech, you know, maybe some Hellborns or something to help out against that heavy gaunt composition.
You know what I'm thinking is that the Animus that's been accumulated here for VortiX should give him access to that dragon pretty quickly. And it does seem like the dragon is essential as you get into late game. Infernal versus Infernal, you really, it can be very hard to deal with if one player has it and the other just doesn't, because the fights do become a little bit snowbally. So let's see if that's in store for us down the road here.
Yeah, I know gaunts shoot up, but if you try to kill the dragon with them, it's not a fun thing to try. So we'll see who ends up getting that dragon, or if it even does end up coming out this game. But already a Magmadon comes out here for VortiX. He's just kind of chasing down the Doombringer. Of course, PartinG going to continue to run away. No Twilight Spire out or anything, so doesn't have to worry about this being picked off.
Yeah, he sends that, and this is going to be probably the quietest moment of this game. Both sides macroing, both sides developing and teching up here. That very late third base for PartinG is going to be captured, but VortiX, all he has to do is continue to stay one step ahead. Really, the burden is on PartinG to try to figure out how to come back in this game. In RTS, when you do get to, in certain types of games like this one, really, once you've gotten that lead, it's about maintaining that and staying further ahead.
And look at that, man. We actually had a very funny drop there where his Magmadon went down to the side of the map, but he finally does get it out here and will throw that stomp down. So dealing a little bit of damage in here. In the meantime, we have VortiX with a counterattack onto this third base. There are already 2 Shroud Stones down, though.
We've got Magmadons out. These are so strong against the Gaunts and the Fiends, and with a higher Magmadon count here, and VortiX actually hitting in 2 different locations at once, really forcing PartinG to try to address and put out all of these different fires, and I don't think this third base can stay up.
Well, right now, it looks like VortiX is doing a good job in the main base, but he is kind of running away from PartinG's third base location here, as PartinG has his own Magmadons coming down, brings his Doombringer as well, unloads those Gaunts, and just going to town with these stomps.
Yeah, he's going to be driving him back a little bit further here. I think VortiX is being very patient. He does not want to overextend, but this means PartinG is still in this game for a little bit longer. A very damaged Doombringer is going to wrap back around here, and I think he's probably going to be merging his main army up and possibly even looking for a push over into the second base.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It looks like he's kind of positioning himself outside of there right now. We do have some more static D that's gone up here for PartinG. Definitely making sure that he's staying very, very safe. VortiX right now rotating back. He is taking a 4th base right now. So that's an important moment. PartinG as well, though. It feels like PartinG caught up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, PartinG's done a really good job playing from behind here. We got a really great Magmadon drop. So as you get further on in the game, I know for most of this tournament, we've seen a lot of Gaunt drops, but having 1 or even 2 Magmadons really just makes sense because they can wipe the workers out so quickly. So PartinG comes in there, gets the damage done, and then gets back out. But we've got a big army over here for VortiX.
Yeah, looks like he's going to take his vision camp. He does have a bit of map control right now. He's going to be able to get a ton of vision out here, kind of roam back and forth. Obviously, we see that PartinG still out there with his Doombringer. Looks like he is going to bring it home now because he might be nervous about this push that's headed towards his 3rd.
Yeah, well, he has to hold his push. He has to stay up with resources here, and this is a really scary push coming here. He has the Magmadon dive in, a pretty good dodge there from VortiX. VortiX going to try to advance a little bit further over here. I just don't see a whole lot here to get in the way of these towers. We do have another super powerful tower casted down over here now.
And a lot of Magmadons trampling on both sides right now, kind of diving into each other's armies. And of course, this is doing a good job for PartinG because he does have so many Shroud Stones up here dealing that extra damage. So he will end up holding on, but it doesn't feel like VortiX lost too much there, right? He tried the attack, but it wasn't like a huge fumble.
Yeah, this has been such good defense from PartinG. This whole game, he's just been deflecting and shutting down everything. Now, that being said, VortiX is continuing to grow, and that's what's important as well. He can, you know, if he doesn't kill off these bases with these attacks, as long as he can still try to play a control game and dominate the map, there's still chances for him there. We got more creeping on the map, and really, PartinG hasn't been able to creep for probably the last 5 or 6 minutes, I think. So there's income coming in over there as well. They all...
Yeah. That's actually kind of interesting that you mentioned that, right? Like, this is something that happens in Stormgate if someone has that map control, and now suddenly hitting that 4th base location, and PartinG a bit out of position, doesn't have as many Shroud Stones over here. One dies immediately, another morphing one is going to be taken out as well, but PartinG bringing his army as quickly as possible.
Okay, we see the Magmadons coming back across over here. It looks like... I can't tell if those units are bugged or they're behind the cliff back there, but there's going to be a push coming in here from VortiX. VortiX has got to be careful and try to thread this needle. He's got to make sure he can take out the shrine north of that position we saw there earlier. At the same time, not get pulled into the Shroud Stones that are going to do so much damage over there.
Some great stunning going down here from VortiX as he gets on top of a bunch of these Gaunts. PartinG's double Magmadon over at that 3rd base of VortiX doing a great job as well. He's actually killed off quite a few units over there, while most of the micro is on his side of the map.
Okay, he's coming out now, and VortiX, it seems like he's overextended pretty badly. PartinG is now going to be able to clean up both of these attacks on either side. This is going really rough right now. Again, you know, the easiest way when you're ahead in all these bases like VortiX was is to just overextend and feed into the opponent. We've got the Dragon now in with the mix. And
you were talking about that Dragon before, Tasteless. Definitely so important, so powerful here with that huge AoE infest, getting it down on those Gaunts, already picking multiples of them off. Can PartinG hold on against this?
Yeah, he's got to be careful not to overextend with that Dragon. But, you know, especially with Gaunts out on the map, those are very brittle units. That's a great way to start to snowball that damage with those Fiends here. He's going to keep pushing. We got one tower that's going to be up, using that ability to infest and then soak that infest back up to gain more white shields on the Dragon, making it very, very tanky, especially as the Gaunt numbers go down.
I gotta say, I do love some of this defense here from PartinG. Gets his own Dragon out now. It is actually already starting to beat VortiX's Dragon a little bit here. And VortiX is overrunning. GG is called, and it looks like VortiX is gonna take down game number 1.
That was a great game. I am really excited. You know, we were talking about how PartinG might be the favorite, that he's just going to take it. But I think the reality is that VortiX put up a really good fight. He showed deep understanding of how to develop on the map. He got that lead early on and he kept it. PartinG fought back really well. Was able to hang on. I thought the game was going to snowball pretty quickly. Wasn't the case at all, actually. But in the end, VortiX gets that first win in this best of 9.
Yeah, that is a big series. That's going to give them a lot of time to learn from each other, right? That's something that we got to consider. And looking at that first game, they had very different ideas. We saw VortiX do what we see a lot of Infernal players do, go for that speed camp, really focus on getting out a lot of fiends early on with their infest. Whereas PartinG setting up that tower in the center, taking out the resource camps more quickly. He did kind of fall behind in that early game, but I still found his play promising. It did feel like he fought back to very close to even from there.
It's also cool to see how different the creeping patterns were. And look, we're going to have so many games coming in here. So, how are they going to learn from each other, adapt, try to maybe even blind counter each other? I don't know. Infernal versus Infernal does seem to come down to who can get more fiends, and a lot of that is really based off of who can dominate the more important camps, or who can intercept somebody who's about to try to get that important camp.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's a lot of really fun, crazy things that can happen at the start of those games. Let's also point out that fiends are just so much faster than gaunts. So if you can ever
Mhm.
isolate their gaunts on the map, it does seem like you can start to really quickly snowball a fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the Gaunts, it feels like when units are on the Gaunts, they literally don't beat anything. you know,
Yeah.
whether that be Lancers, Exos, the Magmadons, Fiends, whatever it is, like the Gaunts do end up falling apart there. So definitely a very important aspect. Can you reduce your opponent's Gaunt count, right? Can you get it to a position where you're going to be the one getting a ton of extra fiends and suddenly they have no map control like we saw there from PartinG?
Yeah, and you know, again, no super quick expands. It does seem like right now the current school of thought is you got to get your vault out, you got to get your conclave out. You need to do whatever you can to first start to accumulate the fiends and get the resources that you get from killing those creeps. We've had some people fast expanding. I don't know if that's going to change as this best of 9 continues on, but that does seem to be the way the game is being approached in Infernal versus Infernal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely something that we have seen, that we have noticed. And I honestly, I'd love to see something like that. I would love to see one of these guys decide, you know what? Let's go, let's go with that shrine first, right? Maybe utilize some of those shroud stones, make sure you're not dying early on, and just kind of give that catapult to your economy and come out stronger in that mid game. But the thing is, as we've seen, you end up getting so many fiends by controlling the map. You end up getting a little bit of extra resources, right, from controlling the map. So you kind of are okay, even if your opponent gets that economic advantage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that map that we just had, that does allow for more of a macro dramatic game, whether it's a mirror matchup or it's Infernal versus Vanguard. It does seem to be a pretty well designed one that leads to some pretty epic games here. Now, I don't know what the next map is going to be, but Jag and Maw has been in the map pool. This is made for some extremely short games.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we got to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I could. I mean, when it's Infernal versus Infernal and Dragon Ball, I guess everything's equal and balanced, right? But we've seen a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
games there that feel like they're decided in like the first minute because we have the fight at the speed camp, right? And whoever takes that down really gets more fiends and ends up having a bit more map control and can clear more camps, maybe get that siege camp more easily. But I gotta imagine these two are both very creative players. They're both very aggressive players, great at micro, very decisive. So I feel like that has opened up the possibility that, like, yeah, maybe we see each map 3 times. We might end up seeing like 3 different strats on each map from them.
Normally when you have an RTS game that's, it's more of a finished product, you would never have the same map back to back. But this
Mhm.
is kind of an interesting mini game that we're going to see be played here. What happens when you have to go back onto the same map? Like in that first game, we saw PartinG made a tower right in the middle. He tried to play around farming the speed camp meta. It backfired. It didn't work for him. But what are they going to do if they have to play on that map again, which they certainly will, right? So
Yeah.
it's it's cool to watch these players try to adapt to each other in real time.
Absolutely. And you do have to wonder, it's like, okay, well, parting your strategy there on Broken Crown didn't end up working. Are you going to counter what VortiX did? Are you going to try? Did you just mess up something that you had planned for your strategy? And maybe if you do that better, you're going to be ahead? Well, we're going to probably eventually figure that out. I would be surprised if we don't see Broken Crown again here tonight.
Yeah, the standard, at least from what I've experienced and seen, and this game is very new, so we're all still trying to wrap our heads around it. Is that you're always going to push for that speed camp, go through there into the vision camp, get the kill on that, and then you do a poke because in a lot of these Infernal versus Infernal builds, it's hard to scout early.
Mhm.
The imps are not actually fast. In StarCraft, we almost always see scouts with workers, Overlords too, of course, but um, you can't get to your opponent's base very quickly with a worker. And so you're playing a little bit of a blind game to start. So it seems like what many of these players are doing is clearing out those speed camps, and then they have enough bulk, they can basically do a poke into the natural. Um,
Yeah, that's what we've
yeah,
seen as the standard. But actually, if you think back to that last game, that was an interesting thing that PartinG did. Is he went for a quick brute, split it immediately, and just
yeah.
sent his fiends across the map. He did a little bit of harassment with them, but honestly, that was heavily a scout as well. He didn't actually end up killing anything, but he did see what VortiX was going for, even though it was kind of what you would expect, anyways.
But the fundamental problem that comes with that is then you have to make a vault, right? So you're showing your opponent some of your tech. And is it perhaps better to have gone and played up more of a blind game where you just push the creeps and checked in later? I don't know. These are the ideas. These are the things we're
Mhm.
trying to figure out. We're trying to learn as we unpack this game. But it's cool to see that they weren't doing the exact same thing. Instead, there's two completely different approaches, and it made for a pretty chaotic early game.
Yeah, it definitely was an interesting one as far as Infernal versus Infernal goes, right? Like they were going down different roads. Obviously, they kind of converged in the overall unit set that they were going for. You definitely need to get into those Magmadons, very, very powerful. The Doombringers, of course, that's been like a staple for the last few weeks here for Infernal. And I think we will definitely see more of that. But I guess the question is like, how fast are we going to see these expansions and everything, especially if we get into Jagged Maw? How aggressively do you play that on one base?
Yeah, and is it a situation where you want to try to just ambush their push to the creep camps, or do you want to I don't know, try to play into counterattacks? I mean, when you know a player is creeping on the map, there should be some fundamental vulnerability inside their main. Is that the way to approach it? The thing with Jagged Maw, if that's the next map we're going to be on, is that the map design, the idea that was implemented is so quickly available to the player, that the whole game kind of becomes how do you get that catapult, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, maybe there's ways to play around that or do counterplay with that.
So Tasteless, I'm actually getting information right now. You saw a parting type the question mark in that game, right?
I
It
saw
definitely
that. I
something
kind of,
was.
yeah, I messed up my casting for a second when I saw this question mark. So yeah, go ahead.
All right. So apparently, what is happening here is there was a significant bug in that game, which was dropping units outside of the map. Okay. So VortiX basically dropped some gaunts
Okay.
on the low ground between the natural base and the third base.
Yeah, I
And
saw
so
that.
the admins have ruled that that is going to be a regame.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I saw the units. I thought I was like a little bit confused what was happening. It looked like there were units that were just kind of stuck um over on like off a cliff or whatever. So okay, so it's a regame. That's that. This game
Yeah.
is obviously still in
Apparently,
beta.
and
Go ahead.
just to make this clear for people, apparently this was in the rule handbook, okay, that you were not
Yeah.
allowed to do this particular thing. So before anyone goes crazy about that, I mean, if it's in the rules, it's in the rules. So I guess we're going to have a
Yeah.
regame.
Okay, we're starting over. That's good to know it's in the rule book. This isn't some willy-nilly decision. But yeah, I guess that is a disqualifying, or not disqualifying, but it would force a reset. So we're going to be going back into, I assume, the same map, Broken Crown again.
Yep.
And I mean, this is even crazier now, Artosis. How are they going to open up this time? They just played the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. Like you kind of know what your opponent had planned there for Broken Crown. Do you try to counter it? I feel like VortiX will probably play very similarly to what we saw, but this is a really big opportunity for PartinG. He got to see what VortiX was made of,
Yeah.
but VortiX landed his gaunts in the wrong place, so PartinG gets a rego.
Yeah, and so we've got a long match ahead of us here. We're not even into game one technically. Um, but with the limited number of maps that are available, I mean, there's going to be so many crazy mind games here, and now we have an extra game inside of the best of nine
Yeah.
that's been played out. So there's already been some information revealed there. It's too bad there was that bug. Obviously, this game is not finished. There's not even a tier 3 or each faction yet. We only have 2 of the factions that have
Mhm.
been playable and been shown to the public. So these bugs are going to happen. That's too bad it happened in a moment like this, but we had rules for it apparently. If it came up, and so here we are.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I think we're just getting the players ready for this, and we'll get them back into that game. We already have Broken Crown kind of queued up for this map once again, and I feel like that game that we just saw. I guess that's the practice game. The first game of the day doesn't count, right? The first game of the finals doesn't
Right.
count. These guys have ideas of what's going on. Obviously, they're both going to be watching out for that. At this point, you have a game that goes like that. You got to be thinking to yourself, I cannot be letting that happen again, right? Like that has to be very frustrating for VortiX.
Sure. Yeah. Very frustrating, but it's a needle he's gonna have to thread here. He's going to be very cautious with how he controls and maneuvers. There is a very big similarity to a lot of these later games in StarCraft 2 here in Stormgate now, where it's very much about trying to set like multiple fires on the map and try to force the opponent to put them all out, or
Mhm.
one will start to burn too big and be too much of a problem, and the game can end there. And certainly, whether it's Infernal versus Infernal or it's Infernal versus Vanguard, Gaunt drops seem to be the way to go. I mean, even when I was practicing before I was watching people's streams, that's kind of organically where I ended up, was getting the Doombringer and loading it
Mhm.
up. I just you do enough creeping on the map and cranking out those gaunts, and then by the time the Doombringer's in play, you go, okay, well now I got this thing. Let's try to go out and I don't know, see if I can harass some workers. And it also sets up really nicely because once you get a couple of infests and hits on those bobs or on those imps, once the fiends start to spawn, all the workers die right away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazily strong, and it's funny to see as well. Two Infernal players do it against each other, and then you got to also take into consideration, right? Fell hogs, they get turned into fiends. It feels like that might be the best first place you can land because you can't run with those, right? If someone's really on top of it, you land near the imps get pulled. You're not going to get any kills there. But if you already start getting fiends right off the bat, I feel like I feel like that's something that we might end up seeing here, right? Is you focus if you see that meat farm, you make sure you get those first few fiends for free, and they can really help you snowball the damage everywhere else.
It's a funny thing that I feel like I would never really say in a mirror matchup, but it does seem like Infernal has this fundamental vulnerability to other Infernals when they're being attacked. Because the hogs, the bases, and the
Yeah.
fact that even if you can corner a couple of your opponent's gaunts that are infested,
Hmm.
right, then you can spawn out some more fiends for you. So it does seem like it's a very delicate interaction that you have, and especially if you
Dude,
can be
yeah.
the aggressor and do damage. Infernal beats Infernal, man. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and that's
Yeah,
really funny that you say that because I know what you mean here where it's like,
yeah.
okay, so wait, Infernals are extra good against their opponent's supply buildings, the meat farms? Yeah. Guess what? The same exists with Vanguard, man. Do you know how quick those dogs kill a habitat? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it the first time dogs killed a habitat. I'm like, oh my God, that dies quicker than a bob almost. So yeah, Vanguard's good against Vanguard and Infernal's good against Infernal.
It's also a funny thing when you're like trying to pick up an RTS game and you don't have a relationship with each of the units yet. Like it's that I'm sure you had many games like I did Artosis where I like get into a fight on the map and I have no idea if I'm going to win, but I know I'm going to learn a lot about the game by the time this fight is done. Sometimes I think it's even and I win, or I get
Hmm.
completely dominated. But whenever you're picking up an RTS, that's all that stuff comes over time. And then once you
Yeah.
really uh, have an understanding of how each of the units interact with each other and what's strong or weak versus what, then you can have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's something that I really like, about Stormgate is it felt like it didn't take very long to kind of get that information and get those relationships with those units and kind of understand what was going on. It felt like it was, I really, honestly, I feel like I played about 10 games and I'm like, I get it. All right, this is awesome. Let's play.
Really, it is a very Blizzard-esque RTS in that you start out with a couple of very basic units and ideas, and then it pretty quickly fans out into a lot of complexity and a lot of potential. As you know, like I remember even just trying to figure out, okay, so like, does my infest overlap with their infest? If we're hitting, a creep, or how
Yeah.
do, yeah, all these different things you have to kind of map out and understand in order to really tackle an RTS. So already, I mean, we're off to a very exciting start here with Stormgate.
Yeah. Yep. And definitely looking forward to getting this series started once again. Feels kind of funny starting at 0-0. It almost feels like when you get a draw, right? Draws being just such a rare thing within RTS games. But I am kind of getting that feeling. I'm like, hey, we get an extra game here tonight. Isn't that nice?
I'll take that. I'll take some high level Stormgate games and even an extra
Oh,
one on top of the best of 9.
I got some new information here, Tasteless. All
Okay.
right. So apparently, they have re-watched the replay, and it seems that this was not intentionally done by VortiX, and VortiX was already ahead. So they're going to go ahead and call this a 1-0 victory for VortiX. We're going back to what we had before.
Okay.
VortiX has won. And yeah, we'll see if that if that changes again at all. But I think we're going to be going into a new map now.
Okay. Well, forget all that stuff we said earlier. We're gonna go into game 2. Um, yeah, I guess that makes sense. If the game was not decided off that bug, then that's the route they're gonna go for. So we're gonna be going into game 2. That means that we, just to update everybody here, we are now in a best of 9 in the grand finals here in EGC. And VortiX is in the lead here. We got many, many, many more games to go. We're on the map. Jag and Ma, we've got PartinG in the top right and VortiX in the bottom right.
All right. All right. So Jagged Maw is going to be our map. And, this is what I was kind of most wondering about, is what the match between these two will look like here. Like, are they going to go absolutely ham after the speed camp? Do you just build something near the resource camp? Are we going to see quick rushes to try to get the catapults, right? There's a lot of different options on how you could play this, all of them kind of aggressive.
Certainly. I'm glad that they are willing to try maps out like this. I know that this map has have been somewhat controversial for
How
Stormgate,
dare you?
but the reality is that there's just so many things you can do in an RTS, right? And so why not give this a try, or maybe this idea leads to another cool idea. So immediately we're going to see a Shroud Stone placed nearby the siege camp there on the bottom. Now, most of the games on this map have the same idea, but there's different types of executions of that idea. It's how do you get ideally both, but even just one of the siege camps, and can you snowball the fight? And this is also a map that it just seems, and look, maybe we're going to learn more about this map later on, but right now it seems fundamentally very difficult, and if you were to fast expand, it would seem almost irrational because you'd be playing into their push.
Absolutely.
Right? So something to point out there.
I have to mention that this is the second game in a row now that we're seeing PartinG approach this in a different way than a lot of the other Infernal players we've seen, right? Most Infernal players have been clearing other camps first and going to this later, and he's just saying, screw it. He literally started with his first gaunt while he was still making his Shroud Stone. Whereas you see over here, the more standard play from VortiX, he's like, okay, we get a gaunt out, we start taking these other camps, building up fiends, and he's definitely getting a lot of fiends here.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fiends. Those are going to be beelining over into the base. Keep in mind, you don't really have a whole lot of defense. The fiend's very good against gaunts. Can he isolate these gaunts? Notice the positioning, by the way, guys, of the buildings inside the main for PartinG. He has one conclave slightly higher than the other. You're able to make a small little hallway that you can, or like an alley that you can squeeze your gaunts in, which makes it harder to surround them with fiends.
Definitely SimCity being something super important in all RTS games. You got to place those buildings correctly, utilize them to your advantage, big part of the strategy. And now it looks like, you know, PartinG has that first catapult, and well, I guess he's gonna go for it. But yeah, I mean, he's clearing out these camps and everything. He didn't mine out or break out through the center, which we've seen for most of the catapult pushes. So it will take a little bit for this to go around the map.
Yeah, I was, you know, I'm glad you pointed that out. I was noticing that is it's going to be taking the long trip to get over there. A lot of the builds we've seen here have been engineered to kill the catapult and then open up the center so that the catapult can get there quickly. But PartinG has a different approach in that he's letting it go the long way, and that way he can creep up even more, and that means more fiends.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, he gets that health camp. You know, he got the close by resource camp as well. Obviously, those two middle camps, the speed and the vision camp, were cleared here by VortiX earlier on. But here we go. He's gonna start going for it. There is his catapult. He starts to move forward, but oh my God, he actually brings in a Doombringer to pick everything up while he loses the catapult. Was Tasteless? Was that good, you think? Like, this feels weird.
I don't know what that means. It's like, yeah, it seemed like it was almost like a timed out so that he could just get there and throw a few attacks before escaping, leaving the catapult to die. So kind of a weird interaction. Now the center of the map is opened up. VortiX is pushing through here, and I think that honestly, PartinG should just bail entirely on this position.
Yeah,
now this means
like
he no longer has.
This doesn't feel like super great. Now he is microing really well, picking off, like he's going around where the brutes are and picking off gaunts, so that's good. But it doesn't feel like he actually gained all that much here.
You know, maybe the idea is really that he's less focused on actually winning the game with that that catapult, and more just kind of getting those creeps out of the way so he can get a base up. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, he does get his base up super fast this game, and that's huge, right? Like, here he is. He's got a decent sized army. He's got his Doombringer out already. Look at this. He's flanking the other siege camp. I guess this worked out actually quite well for PartinG. It looked really weird and made me question strategically what he was doing, but that's it. GG. PartinG gonna take that game incredibly quickly. And like, I honestly did not expect that, because like, we've seen so many people win with that siege camp. Yeah. And that just wasn't what he was going for. Like, he made the siege camp, just saved his stuff, that bought time. Like, VortiX saw it coming, so he just made a ton of units, right? He made extra brutes that you don't necessarily want. And you know what PartinG's spending his money on? A new base.
Okay, so yeah, I think what actually is happening there is he's taking control of the siege camp first, and then he ditches it. Yeah. So we were kind of talking about and complaining about this map, honestly, but the fact that a Doombringer comes in there and scoops up the gaunts and leaves, and the catapult dies. Yeah. Now I'm almost seeing this as some kind of level of brilliance.
Yes.
Because by the time he would push, and he never opened up the middle, right? He forced VortiX to open up the middle. And so VortiX, when he finally does that, he pushes. There's already like 2 or 3 Shroud Stones there to defend. So, yeah, I mean, very interesting game there.
Dude, like, honestly, so many things that I was thinking of there. Like, I was wondering, why doesn't he kill the vision camp, right? And conceal what he's doing, that this is coming around. But yeah, I think that was purposeful to get VortiX to spend money, to get VortiX to sit home and make all these units that aren't going to be worthwhile while he expands, rebuilds his army out, and then comes across the map with a strong mid game.
We've got our host here with us. Killer Pigeon, what are you thinking about what you just saw back there?
I think my brain is wrinkling right now. PartinG is a magical man, boys. I think that was genius, right? Like, you were just highlighting the fact that he clearly set it up as a bait. It's an interesting kind of flip narrative as well, right? Because I think we talked about at the beginning of this series is this idea that being base ahead, right, being more focused on your mid-game transition, getting the eco up seemed to be a big edge in the IVI matchups. Map control almost feels like it's a little bit more baiting, especially ever since they nerfed the speed camp from 5 creeps to 3. And I think that's quite appropriate, because in that first game, which may have seemed like a while ago for some people now, it was a bit of time ago, that game was once again dictated by this idea of pacing, right? Like, VortiX at every stage in that game was 1 base ahead. And the interesting thing there, Artosis, is that even though we did have some low ground shenanigans, obviously, you know, it happened at a stage so deep in that we had to declare it as a VortiX win, right? Like it was very obvious he was ahead there. I think the interesting thing is that what we've seen here is an alteration in the way that PartinG opens. But for me, VortiX's opener on Broken Crown is the same one he's been doing against everyone else.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I think he has a certain way he wants to play it, and he's very good at playing it like that, right? He's very good at micro. He's very good at being decisive and thinking on his feet. So if another player is doing a similar strategy, which a lot of them are, a lot of times I think he can either control or think his way out of it. But the way that PartinG is approaching this from a completely different angle, like yes, VortiX won game one, but like that last game, VortiX must be scratching his head, right?
Yeah, but we've seen so many things on Jagged More, but that was just completely breaking the mold of expectations. I think that's an interesting thing to think about now, Tasteless. Obviously, we've only just got a little bit of a taster of this series, only 2 games in. But, you know, when you go in these longer series, best of sevens, best of nines, it's not about who has the best, like, build order for that 1 punch, that 2 punch. You need to be very flexible, I want to say. And my concern is, like, based on these opening games, do we think that PartinG maybe has a lot more strategies we've yet to see here?
That's a really good point. I think PartinG is showing that he has a lot of range in play. And like I don't know what's better when you're in a brand new RTS game. In my head, I feel like you should have like one really good way to approach, you know, each map and just like do that better than everybody else. But it may be like a variety of builds and a bunch of different ideas being executed back to back in each game that is going to win this for him. And again, as this best of 9 continues to unpack itself, it's going to be really fascinating to see who sticks with the same build orders or strats and who really deviates, because it does seem like we're starting to see maybe VortiX more repetitive and more mechanical, and PartinG a little bit more intuitive.
One thing that I think is fair to say, Artosis, is that once VortiX gets that machine rolling, he seems to have this very good formula, right? It's all about the Animus escalation. We saw the Dragon in game 1. And, you know, one thing that I was thinking sitting there, you know, we often talk about Hornets being a good solution, maybe some flat cannons and Exos to solve the problem. One crazy thing to think about in this mirror matchup is you don't have a great fast solution, because why would you be building a Twilight Spire in a mirror?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't do a lot for you. You know, I remember when I was first starting to play Infernals, I made a bunch of Spriggans, man. Boy, did I find out they don't do much in that matchup. So yeah, I don't expect anyone to go for that. But obviously, like, say you pop out a couple Shadow Flyers and pop the Doombringer when it's full of units, like that was probably worthwhile, right?
Yeah, no, that's a fair way of looking at it, right? We expect the Doombringer. That's always coming on both sides, and we're seeing how clutch the difference can be there. But boys, we just got confirmation on our third map. We are going back to Broken Crown. This could be good for VortiX. PartinG has adjusted. We've seen him look good as he shifts deep in the series. The question as we get ready for this game is whether PartinG has something new for us, or if VortiX is going to copy and paste that game 1. Let's get to it.
All right, we're going to be going into our game right now, and I'm very happy to say we are 1-1. So we got ourselves a series, Artosis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I expected this from the beginning. Like, even if PartinG does end up winning, as I think he will, VortiX for sure good enough to take multiple games here. But this is the big test. Does PartinG do the same thing and adjust? Does he do something completely new? We're about to find out.
All right, we've got VortiX here in the top right in the red, and in the bottom left in the blue is PartinG. So it is going, if you remember the first game here, it is going to be the roles reversed here, the positions reversed. So PartinG's going to be down here in the bottom.
Yeah, that's right. And I do wonder, like, it looks like he's leaning towards maybe going through those trees, which we've seen a lot. Is there any chance he wants to go Shroudstone in the center again? You know, that was kind of an interesting play to see so early on. And I do like, you know, you gain those extra resources and everything. Maybe you have a little bit of map control through that center, but it didn't seem so impactful. So yeah, it looks like he's going towards the more standard strategy of going towards the speed camp right away that we've seen so much in Infernal versus Infernal.
So just for the beginner players, I want to clarify, because this can look kind of weird. they can get out of their base without destroying the trees, but if you tear these trees down, you get a direct, like a beeline over to where the speed camps are. And so that's why you see all these players opening up the back of their base. Because I think for a lot of people, you'd think, why would you want 2 entrances to your natural expansion? That seems dangerous. But it's really because getting these creeps is so important. And we're still fleshing out the ideas of which creeps you get first. Interestingly, PartinG goes for the spider. Most players that I've seen and studied, and myself included, go for the speed camp always immediately.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
From VortiX.
Pretty much everyone has, but let's say for a moment, just theoretically, you know your opponent's going for the speed camp over there. You could grab the resource camp to speed up your production a bit, right? Because it's going to give you that extra money very, very quickly, and then deal with the speed camp afterwards. So, you know, in a way, I kind of like the adjustment.
Yeah, it's cool to see. And I guess, you know, who knows, as new maps come out and the creeps change and everything, there's always going to be these things that have to be taken into account. Because getting those creeps and getting the benefits they give you, whether it's vision or the income, or in this case with Infernals, the fiends you get from it are huge. Really well timed that attack, by the way. Forced to cancel over there on the shrine. Meanwhile, the exact same mirrored thing is happening over here for VortiX.
Yeah, and that's actually a bit painful. There are more fiends for PartinG, and he actually is bringing in a couple gaunts as well. So the 4 fiends that counterattacked by VortiX not actually doing that much, whereas, yeah, this feels a bit better here from PartinG, doesn't it? Like, he brings them up. I guess he doesn't end up getting as much damage as I thought he might there, as we do have a quick turnaround here with the fiends from VortiX.
One problem that I see, but probably is not the right word. One feature of the matchup you got to watch out for is that the gaunts are so slow that if there are fiends on the map, they can never run back home.
So, you know, especially considering those fiends have gotten even a speed up on the last batch, right? Like, they are very speedy right now. There's not like you can micro the gaunts a little bit, but they don't have a lot of health. They do fall quickly.
And so the fiends are just going to be coming up here now. And this is what I'm talking about. You really see the punish there, and it just chains out more and more of these fiends. It's really only the brutes that have the muscle, the power to kind of stay and force you to abandon a position. But the thing about the brutes is they're just not fast at all. Gaunts and fiends can run away, no problem. And you can even see here the gaunts can actually, in higher numbers, kite the brutes. And the brutes being so slow, they can't run back home, Artosis.
No, they're having a bit of a hard time there. So PartinG does turn, and it really feels like PartinG has the advantage here. He does have a few more gaunts, about 3 more that are fighting against each other. But VortiX trying to chain a couple kills here, and it looks like he will, which does turn this towards his advantage now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. This is such a funny matchup with how this works.
Yeah.
So more fiends are coming out, and as he continues to infest this, he can just keep chaining these attacks in here. It's going to happen on the Fellhogs in a second. The Fellhogs have very low HP. Can he get one more fiend to come out there? And now, with no fiends over here, we're going to see the reversal of this. He's going to chase him back.
I love it, too. The brutes being made and turned immediately into those fiends. And look at that. He clears them, and suddenly he's the one with a bunch of fiends on the map. It is wild to watch this early game of this matchup. And in fact, did he just kill his own gaunt there?
Oh, I did not see. I'm sorry.
I believe PartinG just killed his own gaunt there. I think maybe because it was so low on health, he doesn't want it to just instantly become a fiend.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. It's probably better to just get rid of damaged gaunts so that you don't have that, that snowballing effect of the fiends coming out and maybe swinging a fight. And look at this. He pushes right up over here to where the Fellhogs are. He knows exactly where to go and where to strike. By the way, there is no shrine back at home for VortiX. So VortiX is kind of all in here. He needs to really make this damage work, and it seems like he's starting to do it.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. Surrounds that brute, gets his fiends absolutely all over the place. They do start to attack into the gaunts here of PartinG. Obviously, your imps are going to have a very hard time fighting this as well, because they're just going to turn on you very quickly like a zombie movie. Going after this meat farm, he's just dealing damage absolutely anywhere that he can. Going after the Iron Vault, a lot of damage being dealt.
Yeah, I feel like if you can get rid of the Iron Vault, you can probably win in a lot of these positions, because the only thing that has the muscle to kind of fight off these fiends is a brute. But there's a tower that's set up that's covering this, and so he's going to try to stay on the exterior. You see him attacking his own shrine. That's on purpose because the infest bounced. I don't know what I want to call it, mutilus glaives. I don't know what word to use.
Yeah,
here.
no, it's glaives in my head as well.
yeah.
The gaunt
He
glaives.
can have that bounce off his own building, and that'll connect to an enemy unit here.
Yeah.
It seems like. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't know how they carry that many sides, man. The amount of sides I see these guys throw.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't seem to have backpacks or fanny packs or anything. Another attack's going to come in here. It seems like PartinG has stabilized. Now, I don't know how many workers were killed. This is something we're going to have to check on in a second here. This has been a very chaotic game. And again, we're seeing that fundamental feature of the matchup where the Gaunts can't actually get away. So there's 5 there. There's 11 there on the Luminite. We have long distance mining happening. Because otherwise the main Luminite base would be super saturated for VortiX. So VortiX is about to have his next base kick in, and instead he GG's. That's going to be it. Game 3 goes to PartinG.
All right.
Wow.
So, yeah, PartinG definitely having slightly better engagements there. A lot of units lost for VortiX. Kind of a tough one, right? Like PartinG is adjusting. He's changing how he's playing. He's still not playing exactly how VortiX is playing. He's making a few little changes, right? Like he dived in with more units early on into VortiX's base. He also took that resource camp first. So definitely has some different optimizations than what we're seeing out of VortiX here. I guess the question is, will VortiX start to react to the way that PartinG is playing this series?
A good question. It really seemed like VortiX almost just won that. Like when he got in there where the workers were, like as we had this like chase scene that was going across the map, and PartinG was beginning to lose one Gaunt, and then another Gaunt, and then another Gaunt after that. And then you could see VortiX knew you don't stay and fight the natural expansion. That's what I would do. I think that's what a lot of players would do. You'd start to try to kill. No, you go for the Fell Hogs, you go for the Imps. You get in there, you get those kills, and suddenly you have enough Fiends that you might be able to take the game. But behind that, he didn't have his own base. And so I think once the vault was protected by the tower, and he was able to mine with his imps again and eradicate the presence of VortiX in his base, it just looked like it wasn't enough. So VortiX taps out. Yeah,
VortiX, he stayed in the game just slightly longer. I think he was probably taking an assessment of exactly where he was at, but unfortunately feeling like he didn't really have any chance there, maybe saving a little bit of his energy as well. It is possibly going to be a very, very long series, this best of 9, but PartinG right now does lead 2-1.
Yeah, he has managed to take the lead. We've had very different games here. I love to see it. I mean, it's showing that the matchup can be really dynamic. We had a pretty dramatic late game in game 1. We had a game I think we're all still kind of unpacking on Jagged Maw because it was so counterintuitive to what we had seen prior, which was a pretty repetitive, one-dimensional game that would occur over and over on Jagged Maw. Instead, a pretty deceptive pull there from PartinG. And then it was just PartinG with clutch micro, clutch control. I like that you pointed out, Artosis, that PartinG even killed his own Gaunt that was injured just to make sure he had stability and defense. I don't know, man. I'm loving this. This has been a great final so far.
Yeah. Actually, it's delivering more than I even thought it would, honestly, with the variety of strategies that we are seeing so far. And we're only 3 games in. I think it's going to continue to get better and better. It looks like our next map is going to be Secluded Grove. So going to be our first time here in the finals, and we'll see how these guys play this map a bit differently.
This is a map where the center is extremely powerful economically, and it seems like a lot of games kind of come down to who can actually capture that. And usually after it's captured, the game ends pretty quickly because it's not feasible financially to recover no matter how you do it. In this game, game 4, we've got PartinG in the top right and VortiX in the bottom left.
All right. We'll see what they want to end up opening up here with. Looks like we are going to get those iron vaults down very, very quickly. But yeah, are they going to go very heavy on the camps? Which camps are they going to end up being? And is it possible that we get a big macro game here? I do want to see some later game between these two where no one's really ahead, right?
Yeah, it does seem that Infernal versus Infernal is so much about trying to get a lead early, though. You know what I mean? You have the Achilles heel. The strongest thing about the faction and the Achilles heel on the map at the same time. So the strongest thing that they have is the Infest, right? That seems to be what the whole faction is built around. But at the same time, the Gaunt is a great target. The Gaunt, the thing that creates the Infest and the Fiend ultimately, is also the great target for your opponent to do the same thing. So it's kind of a crazy way that it develops.
Well, right now, it looks like PartinG, you know, going through that camp area with the speed camp, with that resource camp. But an immediate Brute popped into a couple Fiends here from VortiX. He's running around, and it looks like he wants to go and check if that's what's going on. In fact, he's going to get right through there with his Fiends. He's going to say, okay, you've already cut a hole through here. So maybe he tries for like some sort of ambush play here against PartinG.
Yeah. Those trees, a lot of players have started to open those up really, really early on. So that's kind of cool to see him scout for that. And maybe he's going to be able to set something up that would be pretty cool. VortiX right now is kiting these goats, these creeps over here. The same thing is happening for PartinG just up at 12 o'clock. I don't know if there's going to be trees carved out over there or not. But other than that, I got to point out, PartinG is taking a second base. And there is no second base yet for VortiX.
Yeah.
Which means VortiX is going to be pressed to do something very soon. And I don't even know that he can do anything, Artosis.
You know, the funny thing is when he brought his Fiend over to scout if PartinG had opened up that area, he didn't actually scout all the way to the expansion. He just did that now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, is that right?
It's almost as if PartinG opened that. Maybe he saw that VortiX likes to scout that early. He opens that, which points towards himself doing a lot of creeping in the early game, and then he just expands, because then VortiX is like, VortiX is thinking the complete wrong thing here.
Dude, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, when you see the tree open up, you go, oh, he's going to creep. He's going to creep through the bottom. And you could see that he was ready to set that up, but then he didn't do anything there. I guess he's going to hit this right now, but this is a fast expand build with delayed creeping. And so this is one of these moments where, like, you make a couple moves on the map, and you get your opponent to behave a certain way, and now you're 2 steps ahead.
Yeah, I'm in shock, like how many mind games that PartinG seems to be pulling off here. It's kind of crazy. And in fact, look at this. Like, he goes up, he's removing so many camps now. He has that economic advantage. VortiX is trying to make something happen here, right? Like, he's running around, he's still doing his creeping, and he is getting an expansion, but it just feels like everything is a little bit smaller for him. Everything is a little bit later for him.
Yeah. And look, I want to be clear to everybody, because that play from PartinG is crazy, and I'm so excited to see it. But this is not a losing position here for VortiX. Like, VortiX is behind, but there's still a lot of potential for what can happen next in this game. It does seem like both sides have enough distance, just due to the geography of the map, that they can creep and pretty much go untouched. By the way, here comes that Doombringer out. And by the way, PartinG has answered a question for me that I've been trying to figure out forever. Should I get my 3rd shrine where the ore is, or where the 3rd Luminite is? And apparently he goes for the ore.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of interesting, right? Like, he doesn't want that super long distance mining, I guess. But here we go. He's going to go ahead and unload, going after the imps on this Therium immediately. A lot of damage put down, and in fact, going to start getting a few kills here.
Yeah, PartinG, oh my God, that was a quick GG there.
Yeah.
I guess the reality of having the additional base up early, the fact that he's able to get the Doombringer out and across the map and just start to kill a couple of workers, this just forces VortiX to tap out. I almost said pass out. He's not passed out. He taps out. He will be awake for the next game.
Hopefully.
But, hopefully. But man, PartinG is really good at these really complicated maneuvers early on to kind of get himself into a position that's better. And it seems like that gaunt drop there at the end was the nail in the coffin. VortiX taps out.
Yeah, well, I mean, at that point, how far behind are you truly? Like, he doesn't have his expansion up in mining yet, and he's already losing imps in his main. He has no real mobility compared to PartinG. He has less macro compared to PartinG. There's nothing truly left at that point. The thing that's really getting to me here, Tasteless, is we're seeing 2 different games, Jagged Maw now here on Secluded Grove, where it seems as if PartinG has set up an unbelievable mind game. Like, he knows VortiX inside and out, and he's just completely dominating mentally.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. This game is so new. It's not even done yet, but the stuff we're seeing is so advanced here
Mhm.
from PartinG. He's really put the prep in. Again, the fact that VortiX is smart enough to check the tree, that the tree's been removed,
Yeah.
and that PartinG is smart enough to know that VortiX would check that, and so basically put like a red herring out strategically, um, and then just go for a quick expand. I mean, this is stuff I thought we would be talking about like years from now in the game,
Yeah.
but it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Like I remember when StarCraft 2 came out, we were talking about all these ideas. Like, do you think we'll ever see this? Do you think we'll ever see this? And a lot of it did take years to get to. And
Yeah,
here it's
yeah,
like, okay, well, PartinG is playing 4D chess already here in the first beta that we have for Stormgate. There's not even like tier 3 units or 3 races yet, but PartinG has figured out your brain and he's playing with it right now.
yeah. It's wild. So our score now is 3-1.
Yeah.
Now, this is a best of 9. I think this is the first best of 9 we've ever cast at Artosis, by the way.
I would imagine not
I would
because we've
imagine
casted
so.
for so long. Like, but best of
think
9
it
is a
is.
big series.
I can't think of one other one we did, but we're starting to get a very big disparity here.
Hmm.
3-1 is where it starts to get pretty bad. Party needs 2 more wins to close us out, and VortiX needs 4. So I think this next game in this series, for VortiX's sake, but even for PartinG's sake too, probably the most pivotal one.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I think
if
it's
you
a
go down,
lot
if
harder
you go
to come
down
back.
4-1, if you go down 4-1,
Yeah.
like at that point, I want to see PartinG pick Vanguard till he wins. You know, like you're just so far behind at that point. So I think VortiX is aware of that. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this saying, VortiX is GGing too fast. Honestly, probably not the case. I think that he's looking at the games. He knows he's lost. He knows the level of him and his opponent, but you don't want to torture yourself staying in a lost game, right? Keep your energy up. Don't be thinking too negatively. It's like, okay, yeah, he got me there. Okay, let's go to the next game, right? I like the fact that he's bowing out when he knows it's done.
Stamina is essential. A best of 9 is a lot of games. You need to be in the zone, keep your energy levels going. And look, the 3rd shrine had started for PartinG, so he was going to get the ore kicking in. You get the money for the 4th shrine pretty quickly anyways, in the way that game was developing. The fact that it was VortiX just now getting his 2nd base with income flowing in and already PartinG hits the drop, it was definitely over.
Yeah.
Definitely over. But by the way, 4 different games already. None of these games are looking like the other.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they may as well be playing different factions at this point. All right, so we're going to go to the map draft. Take a look here. It's going to be Broken Crown once again. 3rd time that we're going to be seeing this map in 5 games. And, you know, I kind of like this constant repeating of the maps because we remember game 1, we remember game 3. Okay, what is VortiX going to do differently? What is PartinG going to do differently here going into the 5th game?
All right, guys, let's hop into that game right now. It is going to be VortiX in it's going to be PartinG here in the bottom left in the blue and VortiX in the top right in the red. So will we have the Conclave and the Vault thrown down? I'm guessing yes. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to go for, the Shrine right away. I think the speed camps are just too enticing. Remember that we did have very different navigation of the map from PartinG in both the games. But yeah, I mean, can we have another very different game here in game 3? I say why not?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, I would say, right? Like I could see PartinG doing something completely different. I don't know about VortiX though, right? Like I'm not sure what you do as VortiX, but I am sure you do need to change it up because it's clear that PartinG has looked at his games. He's kind of figured out some patterns and maybe the way that VortiX is likely to react, and he's utilizing that to his own benefit. So I feel like VortiX, if there is a time to turn what you're doing upside down and do something new, something fresh, it's now.
For now, we've got the I guess we could call standard play happening on this map from VortiX again. It's going to be a push to the speed camp. I'm curious about the rationale for why PartinG does the spider camp first. Oh, I see. Why? Hold on. Does he scout? Oh, okay. All right, hold on. I think I have some insight into why PartinG does that.
Okay.
He uses that fiend to check the high ground because there's some plays, and me personally, I've been doing this a lot, is you try to attack them as they're hitting their camp.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We've definitely seen that. Yeah.
And so when he plays like this, what he does is the fiend goes up onto the high ground, peeks, and that way, if you find out that like there's an attack coming from that side, you just run back and play defensive. Really
that makes great sense. Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, you get that little bit of bonus money right away as well, so that might help you to just afford, like, who knows, an extra imp or something right off the bat. So I like it. And here is that attack that we've seen each and every time. Forces a cancel on that shrine, gets the kill as well. Meanwhile, VortiX is not counterattacking. Instead, he's clearing the center.
So that seems to be timed out literally to just cancel that building. I guess there's, you know, inside PartinG's mind, he knows, okay, you're going to be on the map at some point in time. I have enough fiends. I can basically run and attack that and run back out. And then he can snake back across the map. He never brought brutes, right? He just has gaunts and fiends. He can get brutes now if he wants. Then he's going to be up a base. His base will finish first. And he can hold off at an attack, I think, from VortiX.
Yeah, I don't think VortiX can just go in and break him right now. Looks like he's going to clear the health camp. Maybe, like, I don't think it's just for the fiend. I think maybe he wants to heal a bit. No, I guess not. He's just going to run away from that. So not really able to put any counter pressure on. Man, I gotta say, it feels better for PartinG. If you're canceling your opponent's base and getting yours up on time, that's just that's an advantage.
Yeah, it really is. Well, we see another game where like PartinG just kind of inches out ahead. By the way, I'm very fascinated by the placement of the Shroud Stone. I guess that doesn't slow down workers, or is it just because that's the only way to cover all the workers and not have to make 2 Shroud Stones?
Yeah, I think it's the least intrusive for having 1 Shroud Stone defensively. If you put it on the side, you can't quite defend everything really well. So, yeah, I think it's just like it's a pretty smart play.
So we have the it's called it's a Doombringer, right?
That's right.
For some reason, I keep thinking it's called a Doomsayer. Sorry, Doombringer comes out. 4 gaunt drop. There is a Doombringer coming across the map for VortiX as well. Let's see if we can get any damage done with that. But again, it just kind of shows you PartinG is just, you know, about 15 seconds ahead with everything that he's done, and is very good at continuing to elongate that lead as much as possible.
Yeah, having that your Doombringer over there more quickly, right? Like, look at this, and he is going for that kind of strategy we were talking about earlier. Like, he's picking off some Fell Hogs, getting those additional fiends out really quickly. In the meantime, back at home, he leaves his fiends there to very quickly react to VortiX's Doombringer, and it like PartinG is getting more done with this drop harassment.
Okay, so he's gonna back out. This is just like, it's a moment. It kind of reminds me of a StarCraft 1 PvP where they're both Reaver dropping each other right now. There's just a phase of the game where they both have to defend. He does keep the Shroud Stone alive. That's really good, because if you lose the Shroud Stone at either of those bases, it becomes a lot more easy for the other player to snipe your imps.
Yeah, and you know, it is very low, so maybe VortiX will dive in again and try to get it later. Looks like PartinG trying to hit from that low ground. Not going to be able to do it. Obviously, VortiX rotating around his gaunts, his fiends, his brutes, making sure that no real damage will be dealt. And, you know, I think from here they both blocked it well enough that we can probably go into the next portion of this game, right? Like the third base, maybe get into some Magmadons. I think we're just about ready for that.
Seems like it. Seems like we're going to have another pretty developed game here. Can he actually pick this thing off? I don't believe the Gaunt can throw up into that corner. I think you can keep the is he gonna get a deny on this?
Oh, dude, that would be sick.
He's so good at this. How does he know that he only needs 3? He actually probably should have had more there.
Yeah, if he had sent all of them, I actually think he would have been able to force the cancel. But actually only like 3 went. Who knows? Maybe that was an accident with like an all-army hotkey type thing, right? Like he just spacebar attacked somewhere else and 3 of them were close enough to aggro or something. Who knows? But doesn't get the cancel, but at least sees that VortiX is taking that third.
Yeah, and they're both going to be fairly even on that third base. We're going to be developing into, I guess, mid-game here. I mean, we don't really know how long each matchup's supposed to go. Or, you know, in RTS, especially like Blizzard-esque RTSs, like what Stormgate was modeled to be, you know, some matchups are very long, other matchups are short. So we don't really know if this is, you know, this is one of the fun things for me personally, learning and casting this game is like, okay, so what is this matchup going to look like after we have hundreds of games, you know, casted?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe someone figures it out and it's like, no, actually, the Fiends have nothing to do with it, right? It turns into just Magmadons. Or maybe the Fiends are everything and people figure out Fiend builds that, you know, you just overrun your opponent right away. It's really hard to say, but, you know, these two, I think, have a pretty good feel for what they're doing right now. Both getting their third bases up, some similar harassment from both sides. Doesn't look like anyone's able to bring down their opponent's Doombringer, so no gigantic advantage as of yet.
Oh, what? Look at this. This is wild.
Oh,
you know,
man.
I didn't realize there were Magmadons in there until that moment, but that's kind of a clever play to try to dive onto the Gaunts. This will get cleaned up. Did he got the Doom bringer, right? So then, yeah, there's no more drops there. So VortiX is in pretty good control this game. Meanwhile, we have a pretty tiny push coming up here, honestly.
Yeah, that doesn't seem so big. Well,
yeah.
He does go ahead and infest that area, sends forward his Magmadon. I tell you, those Magmadons stomping next to Gaunts is so strong. That one will get stuck, and PartinG going to end up losing one of those important units and will have to pull back. And suddenly, I feel like this went from a game where I felt like PartinG was winning for most of it to VortiX picking up a few Magmadon kills and maybe having an advantage now.
Yeah, that just didn't make a whole lot of sense coming from PartinG. I think especially when the drop got cornered, you know that you're going to be in bad shape. I think had that drop gotten inside like the third or the main, that would be much better. And then you could maybe push up like that. But I think that push from that point on was kind of an afterthought. So VortiX looking pretty healthy. And again, this is a really important game here. He needs to try to catch up and get his second win. Otherwise, PartinG's going to be ahead 4-1, which is a crazy distance here in this best of 9.
Well, VortiX clearing out this vision camp right now. Continue to do a good job of roaming the map about a little bit. It looks like we do have a Doombringer going towards that third base of VortiX right now. So maybe a little bit of more harassment will end up going down. But yeah, maybe does not quite see that yet. There you go. We do have the Magmadons, and doesn't look like he'll get too much damage there.
Okay. Are we going to have this just get driven into the corner? I guess he doesn't see any opportunities to where he can actually use that to drop. More creeping on the map. We are getting up to 4 bases on both sides. I don't know what would prompt one player to attack the other at this point in time. And he is going to get that Magmadon out, but then decides to go ahead and pick up again. He's going to destroy this Conclave here. Oh, okay. I thought maybe I was like, why? Like,
so it doesn't turn into
want
a
to get
fiend.
his Magmadons back to the very end of his base more quickly? Why would he do that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's just I guess a misclick. Anyways, VortiX, I think should be slightly ahead. I mean, they're fairly even on bases, but we've seen VortiX win a couple of fights.
Well, I think a lot of it can come down to how these Magmadons end up getting microed against each other, right? Like, if you get those stuns off, it's huge. Dude, there's such a bigger army here for VortiX, though. PartinG definitely in some trouble. Some great stomps going down on both sides. Almost looking a little bit silly there. Everyone's stunning each other. Bit of a stun party, but PartinG is doing a little bit of drop harassment during this as well, and sending in his own Fiends, but it doesn't look like the Fiends will get too much done.
Yeah, there's enough defense over there that the Fiends just can't get in. PartinG calls down a super tower down here and is going to try to defend this position as best he can. VortiX is going to continue to advance up in here. He has quite a bit.
Yeah, looks like, you know, the super tower is helping out so much that Shroud Stone Summon is very important for the defense, but with nothing else there, it will get picked off. VortiX continuing to push forward. Oh man, we even have Gaunts over on this side, killing off all the imps that were on Therium there for PartinG. And VortiX, I think, is very close to winning this game.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a crazy game. I'm so glad that we're going to be going into the next game with probably a VortiX win here. I mean, the reality is this base is going to fall. The Magmadons are doing too much damage. We already saw all the imps killed that were mining the ore down there at the natural expansion here for PartinG. I mean, I think PartinG's position is just going to continue to collapse. There it is, GG.
Yeah. All right. So really, I love that. That was an excellent game. It felt like PartinG had a bit of an advantage, and VortiX just kind of fought back. Something about that weird Magmadon drop and then the attack into the natural expansion by PartinG. Neither of those really ended up working out. It looked kind of fancy. It looked kind of cool. But at the end of the day, it felt like that kind of gave VortiX the chance he needed, and man, did he take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess questionable moves there in the mid game there from PartinG. PartinG, I think, is probably playing the best early game we've ever seen. Yeah, Artosis. I don't know. It's been a crazy series so far.
It has indeed. Let's see what Killer Pigeon thinks about that. You've been watching that game, right?
Dude, I've been watching all of them. They've been absolutely incredible so far. What an interesting switcheroo, right? We've seen different people taking the lead, looking for that all-in offensive timing and getting a mixture of results. But one thing I gotta say, actually, Artosis, from the games we've seen so far, although this is looking closer and VortiX is starting to pull it back a bit, I've still got to give brownie points to PartinG for these, well, let's just call them what they are, full baited builds, right? We saw it in Jagged Maw, and we saw it again in the Secluded Grove with the baited chop through. I mean, it's interesting to think how much of an advantage those type of cheeky, baity plays can get you in a series that is so long.
Yeah, it really is huge. Just the fact that he's forcing VortiX to think that there is like an attack coming, or think that there's a lot of units out, and he's doing completely the opposite. It's giving him a huge advantage. But as we saw that game, right? If it's a little bit more even, right? If he hasn't mind gamed in some way that's giving him a huge advantage, VortiX has what it takes to fight back.
Yeah, it's just a case of whether he gets a bit too wrapped up into the Yu-Gi-Oh! You activated my trap card meta, right? And, you know, I think that's where VortiX has looked best, when he just has his clear idea in mind and he's able to execute it fully. I think one thing that was quite interesting to see, Tasteless, from game 3 to game 5, Broken Crown on both, we saw a very big difference here, right? Game 1, VortiX tried to set the tempo. He tried to get in early for the dive with the Fiends. Cost him dearly as the game went on. And now, in kind of a mirror, it's PartinG that made that first move to be on the offensive, yet we see VortiX with this all-in punch timing breaking through.
It's really interesting. Like VortiX, I think he's very, very dangerous if the game can kind of carry on and he's able to get to the late game. Even though I think a lot of us were defining him as like a very aggro player, and he is aggro. He is strong in the early game, but PartinG is doing a lot of really advanced stuff. I just didn't think we were going to be talking about this, right? Like mining out the tree and then fast expanding, or kind of playing into getting the catapult quickly, but not opening up the center of the map on Jagged Maw, just so that you can get a second base up, right? I mean, these are like very different approaches. But so far, look, it's been a very exciting and thankfully very close series.
Most definitely. I think one interesting thing to think about is, you know, although we've seen PartinG come out the door with some creative strategies, got to give a lot of credit across to VortiX for his pivot. Because one interesting point, I think, was back in game 3, Artosis, it was the cancellation on the shrines. It looked like VortiX actually didn't cancel in time. So that one base all-inner was literally him in the moment going, okay, I have to win this right now or it's over. That type of split-second decision-making is what makes champions.
Oh, absolutely. Like, being decisive is one of the most important things, especially when you're an aggressive player like these two are, right? If you're playing a big, long macro game, you know, one little wrong decision may not end up ending the game for you, right? You have a lot of ways to kind of grind out advantages. But if you are in a position where you're attacking or you're behind a little bit, there may only be one window where you have a possible victory. So to see VortiX pick up on those and be able to pick up those victories definitely gives me hope that we can make it to the full 9 games.
Hey, fingers crossed, man. We get to listen to more you. We get to see some more amazing Stormgate. And you know what? It's the moment to see if VortiX is able to quickly pivot, quickly alter plans, because we just got confirmation in. Next up, we're heading back to Jagged Moor.
Okay. Let's go on a Jagged Maw then, man. Again, we've talked about in a critical way, really, this map does seem to lend to some one-dimensional plays because the catapults are too good. It would only make sense to try to get the catapults right away, but then the game we casted on this map, PartinG kind of acted like he played into it and then got a second base up and won from there. So let's go.
Yeah, not sure exactly what we're gonna end up seeing here. I don't think you can do the same thing twice here as parting. So I think we're gonna see a completely different game here once again.
I think so. This does statistically have the shortest games. Like the map we just casted on, a lot of great late games. I've even seen games where like the whole map is mined out. Jagged Maw, it seems like a high level play. It's a very explosive map. It usually allows one player to get enough of an upper hand that they can crush their opponent.
All right, we'll see if
All right,
that's
we're in
how
our
it,
game.
it goes down.
Sorry,
Tasteless.
Artosis.
Go ahead.
We're in. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'm running over you, Artosis. PartinG in the top right, VortiX in the bottom right. You go.
All right. This is the part where we're just kind of waiting to see, okay, is it going to be a crazy rush towards the speed camp? Is it going to be something a little bit more laid back? And the first thing we can notice, right, is that PartinG made both buildings in his main base, whereas we're having one forward building, one building in the main base here for VortiX, which is a bit more common.
Yeah. Can we have a macro game possibly on this map, by the way? I mean, there's a lot of interesting concepts as far as like the role that drops would play if the game goes on long enough, or the fact that I don't know if I guess there truly is a shared base location in the center right. If we did have a late game, so fingers crossed, maybe we get surprised in a second time. We have initially pigeonholed as having only one way to approach it.
So right now, PartinG immediately throws down his Shroud Stone, right, to help him with this. This is what he did in the previous game, where he was really just focusing immediately. Look at this, the very first Gaunt coming out, putting the damage down. But immediately also we see from the other side here, VortiX is cutting through the center and also going for the speed camp.
Yeah, we've got the imp over here to spot. We don't normally ever see a worker out here that's not being used to make a building right away. So this is another intriguing moment here, this time from VortiX to kind of check on that. And that's going to be keeping PartinG pretty honest. Meanwhile, at the center left, we've got more creeping coming down here. A lot of games on this map come down to that camp that we just saw VortiX take. But again, PartinG seems to always have a kind of counterintuitive approach to how to creep on any map.
Well, this has to be played very differently. Look at this. VortiX is coming up to challenge a little bit. Now, he has Brutes. It's just Concaves on the other side for PartinG. So he's going to be able to make a bunch of Fiends and just overwhelm. Really well done by VortiX. I love this. He clears the speed camp, gets those extra Fiends, splits a Brute, and here he is. He's going to be able to take the siege camp down now.
This is wild. Already, this game is completely out of control here. Now, PartinG is expanding. VortiX is not, but the catapult is now in the hands here of VortiX. I feel like this can't be winnable.
No,
I mean,
no, you can't. There's no way,
here, right?
PartinG cannot win this game. Really, if he wins, it's like, how would you possibly do that?
Yeah,
I think he's dead, man.
Imagine it.
Yeah.
He's basically going to let the Shrine making tank some damage just to buy some time in his main. Now, Gaunts are like made out of paper mache when it comes to these catapult hits. You cannot let the if you have a direct hit on those Gaunts, they just die.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. Look at that. He's trying to make Shroud Stones. Those are going to be picked off. Look at this. His Fell Hogs turning on him, and every Fiend coming up to surround his Gaunts. This is looking like it's game over. GG is called, and we got a 3-3 tied up match now.
Yep. 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Make a wish, chat. This is what I like about RTS is that it's not a fixed time for a game. You can have a game
Mhm.
that's an hour. You can have a game that's, a couple minutes. And that's what we got in that game.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I, I like that as well, right? Like it gives you a lot of variety. We don't have to play for an hour after you get that complete one-sided stomp there. And the fact that now it's tied up 3-3, like it really felt at the beginning of this series that PartinG was just outdoing VortiX in a lot of different ways, a lot of mind games and stuff. And now we see VortiX. He's like, okay, I have an idea of what you're going to do here. Here's how I'm going to counter it. His play is a little bit more standard, but he's tinkering with it just enough to beat PartinG's play, which seems to be not quite standard, but made to beat normal standard play, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I'm glad you phrased it like that. I mean, this is wild. The odds of us getting like maximum number of games in a long series, like I said, best of 7, you almost never get a game 7, right? That should statistically be even more difficult than a best of 9, but it looks like we're on the track to do that, Artosis. We are already back into our next game. What is this? Game 7 now? And immediately, guys, VortiX here in the top right, PartinG in the bottom left.
Dude, this is
Party. Artosis.
Yes.
This is the build I do when I'm streaming. This means he took it from me. Okay, pro gamer. Monkeys
okay.
do monkey do. No, this
so
is
he's
okay,
cheesing Tasteless. Yeah, how am I not surprised? This is what you do on the ladder.
So this, I can explain this one. This is let's see if he makes a second conclave or not. Yeah, he does. This is a double conclave. What do you call it? A vault push, and you basically just push into their speed camp. You can bring your own imp if you want to try to open up the trees and hit from behind, but in this case, VortiX is opening up the back door unknowingly for him.
Well, I mean, he's going to have more units. There's no question that PartinG is going to be ahead in that regard. He should be able to win that speed camp over because of that. And I mean, what do you do as VortiX at that point if your opponent just has a bit more? This isn't the point in game where you're used to seeing like a Shroud Stone up or something, right? So I feel like PartinG has looked at this, said VortiX is opening the same way every time. I'm going to punish it, and punish it he will.
So this is going to be decided really quickly. If you can snipe the Gaunt. Okay, now is he going to peek? He's going to use the high ground. He should have to confirm. Wait, does he split the brute? Yes, he does. So he gets the first. Oh my god.
Oh man. Already
my
a
God.
lot of damage there. Both sides losing their gaunts, splitting their brutes, and he sees how close it is, right? So this is an important moment for VortiX. He realizes, okay, this is pretty cheesy. You're pretty far forward. Now, does he fall back into a more defensive stance, or does he battle for the speed camp?
Oh my god, he's going to come in here and intercept the Gaunt. Is this hard for until who's winning? I mean, the Fiends seem to be even in number. I feel like PartinG can't advance down the hill. I think he has to stay here, and he needs to get a brute.
This, honestly, I feel like VortiX is outplaying PartinG right now. Like, he's gotten a few more Gaunt kills. Obviously, we have the additional production facility, so PartinG's still okay here. And you see he's gotten that speed camp. He has those additional fiends. How do you stay alive here? Ooh, he actually aggroes that camp, but that wasn't the move. He gets up, takes out this Gaunt, gonna be able to fight these fiends as well, and in fact has a couple of his own left over. So PartinG definitely with a little advantage.
Can we briefly check how many workers are in the main for each player from our observer? Because I want to see how few or how many imps that PartinG has. So he has 10 on Luminite, 2 on Ore, and then 10 for. So VortiX is ahead, and he's getting a second base up. So this means PartinG has to like accelerate this attack and come in here for the kill. Now he's got enough creeps. He should be able to come take out a lot of these units over here. Yeah. This push is still very viable right now for PartinG. Oh,
yeah. In fact, we do see that Gaunt split right there. Unfortunately, he loses another unit there as well. There's just not enough. He's going to have to cancel out his Shrine, I think. And in fact, there's so little here for VortiX. I just don't think he holds on at all.
think he's in a lot of trouble here. And keep in mind, the Iron Vault, the only thing that can really help you right now is brutes, because the gaunts just die immediately. GG, the Iron Vault, yeah, you're gonna, any brute that comes out is gonna be surrounded and killed. What a game, Artosis. Ooh. This is going really fast. That was a 4-minute game. Okay, so PartinG is now up 4-3.
And that makes
and
it
you need
match
5 wins
point.
to take it.
Yeah, match point here for PartinG. Definitely, he countered pretty hard what we've seen VortiX doing on Broken Crown, right? So that has been a big part of PartinG's wins so far, is him kind of knowing how VortiX plays and countering it quite strongly. The thing is, I felt like VortiX was taking some good engagements there, but maybe did he not realize that there were 3 production structures? Because he kept coming out in the map while expanding, and it's like, well, if you're doing that, you're simply not going to have enough units, and that's totally what happened there.
Yeah, it seems like I do that all in a bunch, but I don't feel like I fully understand it in and out. But yeah, it seems like you cannot continue to advance on that, right? Because the gaunt travel distance, once it's out in that part of the speed camp, it takes forever to get back into the main. The gaunt is just very slow. So the fiends can just run in there, and then it just starts to snowball. So yeah. This play for sure there by VortiX.
You get that many fiends out, man. It's so funny how quickly gaunts end up dying. It's like the units that are free absolutely destroy the units that you're buying. And PartinG shows us that very quickly.
Yeah. So we're back on Jagged Maw. All right, let's go, guys. This is hopefully not the final game. Hopefully the second to last, if we can get that lucky. VortiX in the top right and PartinG in the bottom right. Infernal versus Infernal. Kiwian was unable to make this a Vanguard versus Infernal finals, but I'll tell you what, the matchup has turned out to be really interesting. We've had a lot of very different games. We've had some great macro games, some crazy cheese games. And I don't know, let's see what hand we get dealt with these two players as we go into Jagged Maw again.
Yeah. Hoping that we do see a longer one here. Of course, this has been a very, very, very fast map. We have, over on PartinG's side, it looks like he's going for the same build. And then VortiX is like, he has his Iron Vault. What is he just going to break through once again in the middle? Like, is this the counter strat? Is you just go in and you jack them while they're trying to get the catapult?
I guess so. In case you guys are wondering, by the way, because I know there's a lot of new people here, these rocks that the Imp's tearing down, it's just like the trees. Those are the trees for this map. Yeah, PartinG, is PartinG gonna check?
Okay.
Again,
he sees the Imp, so it gives him time to react, right? Like, what can he change to make this work? Oh, that's what he can change. He cancels his plan.
Yeah, this is sick. Okay, so he's gonna go back. Does he expand, or does he just kind of turtle it out? He's giving up on creeps, so VortiX is gonna have an edge in that regard. It's gonna be tower on low ground.
Well, dude, this is a big advantage to VortiX, isn't it? He's the one getting all the camps. We've had a canceled building, basically no creeping here at all from PartinG. And I mean, he's just making shroud stones, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm watching a little kid play, you know? He's like, well, now I need my towers up so I can't be attacked. Unfortunately for him, the catapult outranges that. So I'm feeling really good for VortiX here. Yeah.
It's like, well, I better make buildings that the catapult will absolutely kill. Well, maybe he can tack into tier 2 here and then try to get a Weaver and harpoon the catapult.
Oh man, on one base, that would be pretty wild.
Can you get a yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if there's a possibility VortiX tries for both catapults here.
I think
he
probably
runs ahead.
He probably could have, but he's well, actually, you can kill the creep camp quick enough. These almost come at the same time, right?
I think if you turn around immediately and go for it, maybe. But yeah, it looks like he's going to skip that for now.
So this is high ground to low ground. Will this tower hit the catapult, or do you need to have vision of the high ground? Is that how this works?
Yeah, okay. He's going to need to get vision. So I think that might be part of the plan here for PartinG. He's saying, okay, well, if you want your catapult to attack, you got to come up here to get vision. So he's really abusing the mechanics of high ground versus low ground here. And in fact, his mascot's doing a great job. And suddenly the catapult is in range of this Shroud Stone.
Is he gonna kill it? Oh, catapult gets the kill on that, but the catapult is now taken out, so you don't have a weapon that can push this position anymore. Let's check where the oh, that's it. GG. Okay, so VortiX just taps out. Oh, that's it. Oh, we did it. It's over.
Yeah.
Okay, GG. Yeah.
So
sorry, I was about to say let's check the progress on the shrines, but that's it. PartinG gets his second base up earlier, and so VortiX just taps out.
Yeah, that is going to be that. It looks like we have our victor of the tournament, PartinG, taking down VortiX. And that's going to be a 5-3 victory. Very well played from both sides. Really great understanding of the mechanics of the game, especially by PartinG here, of the mind games, of the meta game. I feel like he really does deserve to be champion.
I think the position of that first Shroud Stone, the turret, is really deliberate. I think he has it set up in a way where it's possible for the catapult to be in range of it because of the vision disparity from the whatever ground that was to one level lower. Look, PartinG has played a really impressive series. A lot of nuance, by the way, on Jagged Maw there. Kind of letting his opponent play into parts like the objectives, I guess, for lack of better words, of the creeps on that map, but then exploiting it. PartinG was not really winning with catapult pushes on that map, like we saw everybody else who won on that map in this tournament, right? So that's fascinating. And again, a whole bunch of very different games there. We had some long dramatic ones. We had some back and forth ones, some super quick ones, so even 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But what a treat and what a big moment in history, Artosis. PartinG defeats VortiX 5-3.
Yeah. It's kind of been known and spoken about that PartinG has been the strongest Stormgate player so far, and he really goes ahead and proves it. Basically, all the world's top Stormgate players so far in this beta phase have participated in this Stormgate Open, by EGCTV, and PartinG ends up being the champion. He only dropped a few maps throughout as well, right? Like what he lose to Kiwi, and he lost like 2 maps and then 3 to VortiX. Not bad. Dropping very few maps to become the champion.
Yeah, and honestly, these players, we had so many interesting games. If you're just now tuning in, you're not familiar with this game. It's still in beta, made by the OGs at Blizzard that took care of StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3. And, there's going to be a lot more to come here with this. So this is a really exciting time to see that we had a finals that was this good, a tournament that was this exciting. We had a lot of great moments here, and it's only going to go up from here.
Well, let's bring Killer Pigeon in, see what he's thinking about that wonderful finals there between PartinG and VortiX.
I feel like I'm still dissecting what he done back in game 3 at this point. I mean, PartinG, what a phenomenal performance. Everyone's got their own way of playing Infernals, but I think it's fair to say, lads, no one quite plays it like PartinG right now. Looking back at the series, though, what a crazy one, right? I think even though it was Infernal vs. Infernal, we didn't get exactly what we wanted there, right? We want the Vanguard Infernal perfection to see the clashes. I think it's fair to say that we learned a lot about the way that these civs interact, Artosis. I think one of the biggest takeaways is it seems like the opening plays are dictating a lot of the outcome, especially between these two players.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It really feels like the early game is setting up everything else in Infernal versus Infernal. But I mean, that's oftentimes the way things are in RTS games, right? You get your opening, you figure out, okay, who's ahead, who's behind, who's the defender, who's the attacker, who has map control, who has a better economy. And I mean, those things, when you get players of this level, like real champions from multiple games, you're going to see how they can abuse those little edges that they gain in that early game.
Right, going on from the openers, that I think it'd be fair to say VortiX seemed to have a very good idea of how he wanted to establish the beginning of these games. I think one of the biggest highlights for me, Tasteless, was the adaptation by PartinG, right? Obviously, we got to highlight the creative bait builds. We saw a few of those. But I think the other thing you could see slotted between that was a clear alteration of how he wanted to approach VortiX as an opponent.
Yeah, well, he was able to cycle through different openings and approaches, and it shows you just how much labbing PartinG has done, to where he has all these different techniques he's employing and creeping patterns he's moving through. And even in some of these really short games, like the Jagged Maw ones, he was really quickly able to think on his feet. Like we saw him in that last game get scouted by the worker. VortiX is looking for it. He abandons the tower push on the creeps and heads back. I just didn't expect there to be so much nuance in these games with these two players just because of how new it is, right? Normally, it's time that'll age an RTS game like wine, right? But we're seeing that these guys are coming in here with so much knowledge from previous RTS games and putting that in to the games they're playing right now that we're getting some really interesting matches.
Do you think part of that is also the pacing Artosis, right? Like we were talking before we got on for the grand finals, the beautiful thing about Stormgate, it feels like you hear some StarCraft people feel it's a little bit too slow. Age of Empires people think it's a bit too fast. Well, hold on, it's hitting this nice mid ground, it feels like, between a lot of them. But the impressive part is even with that mid ground, maybe a slower pacing than some RTSs, just how quickly people have figured out all the small nuances.
Well, if you look at like the history of RTS, right, it feels like the more Western scene has been getting so much better at RTS games for the past 15 years or so, right, since StarCraft 2 came out, and we've got like really big scenes, H2, H4, Star 1, Star 2, some of these other Warcraft 3 and things like that. And yeah, like these players that have been really good at multiple games for multiple years are able to very quickly kind of dissect, okay, what are my tools here? What are my options? Like, what do I want to accomplish and how do I end up doing that in the most optimal fashion? And when you get a tournament like this, where you have a bunch of the best RTS minds going at it, it feels like the evolution of that is quicker than we've ever seen.
Especially when you combine the different backgrounds, right, Tasteless? Because it's almost like you get these people who have been around since Warcraft in some examples, people who just stuck with Age of Empires on their own coming through, sprinkle your other RTSs in. It's almost like that feeling where if everyone just came from one game, there might be a slower, I want to say, development of that meta as you have to figure out fresh things that you wouldn't have seen before. But when you've got all these people now flooding in, it's almost like you have to adjust much quicker because of all those backgrounds.
Absolutely. And I think it's like what's so cool about an online game like this is that it's like all these brilliant people coming together and trying to figure out how to do it best. And you're right, there's all these skill sets that are unique to each of the RTS games, like obviously Warcraft 3. That was the one with the creeps, right? Age of Empires has a different pacing and a different tempo to it than like a StarCraft 1 or a StarCraft 2. But then even StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 are so different. So when you get something this eclectic and you pull all these players together, and get to test stuff out, it's really interesting. And so I think you're right. If it was just like, let's say, only StarCraft 1 players had switched over or StarCraft 2 players switched over, I don't think we'd have as good games. But now with all these different RTS players coming together, yeah, it's a recipe for some really, really exciting strategies and games.
Now, speaking of recipes, actually, I'm going to hone in on a specific game because I noticed you nerded out about it straight away, Tasteless. It was the Game 7, the proxy-based double Iron Vault 1 Conclave. Seems like you might be the master of this build. I don't know if you want to try to say PartinG copied you, but what would have been the solution in that particular game? What could VortiX have done there to get out of that sticky jam?
I think you have to disengage, but I don't know. I mean, they both committed to fighting there. Most of the games that I play, I just win outright if I run into their base and do that. But yeah, I mean, so much of it I think comes down to the Gaunt Fiend interaction and who can actually take it. It's a very tactical moment. You have to take, I think, win with the Gaunt, killing their Gaunt and not just killing it, but also forcing the Fiend out and then try to snowball it and push it from there. But that's tough, especially when there's creeps like those goats, the speed camp. It makes for a pretty explosive situation for sure. But I think probably go back and maybe just try to throw down defense.
Okay. And Artosis, I mean, you saw some more maps of it. You had a hot feeling, or should I say feeling, a burning rage inside actually about how you feel about Jagged Maw. After a few more games, I guess one way of kind of developing that conversation more, you guys hit on it in the cast. Can you actually play this game, this map as a late game? Can you play it as a macro game, or is it just a doomed map in your eyes?
Oh, I think this particular map is doomed 100%. Like, obviously this is a mirror matchup, so there's like a certain amount of evenness there. And I really appreciated how PartinG played it. where it was like he was almost tricking his opponent into thinking the camps were important, and he and then he just counters that in some way. But yeah, I think overall a map of that type of design, it just goes against so many fundamentals that we need to balance a game. So I think that in the next beta or whatever, we won't see Jagged Maw anymore. It's silly.
Yeah, take it out back, shoot it, move on. I think one interesting thing as well with all those beta type players, Tasteless, is you know some people might look at this and go, "Oh, you just didn't want to show respect to VortiX. Like, it wasn't good enough to read through it." I think it's the opposite, right? Like the fact that PartinG believed that each game VortiX would do the right thing, the meta thing, just shows you how highly he rated VortiX as an opponent.
Yeah, my favorite Jagged Maw game was probably the one that, if we go back and look at the cast again, Artosis and I were the most confused at for a little bit, which is where he didn't open up the middle, but still got the catapult, and then he created the illusion of a committed push while he expanded. And the moment that VortiX was ready to intercept the attack, or at least try to brace for impact, the Doombringer comes and scoops the Gaunts out and goes right back home. And it was like he completely threw him off. So that stuck with me a lot too. I had some fun on that map. I do agree with Artosis. I think there's some problems, but at the same time, I don't know. It's been fun seeing these two guys go at it.
Well, you know what? We can dive deeper into the mind of PartinG. A very smart man, one that left us puzzled even when we had the full picture. We have the privilege of interviewing PartinG, the winner of the EGC Stormgate Open. Okay, looks like we've got PartinG on the line. PartinG, are you there? Can you hear us? We'll give him a moment. He's been for a best of 9. He deserves a second. Okay, I think we have some small technical hiccup. We're going to try and sort that so we can hear from PartinG himself. So I think like we're already imagining a few obvious questions here, right? Like we want to get his take in comparison to Artosis's on Jagged Maw. I definitely want to ask him what he thinks of the overall balance of the game, the direction. But I guess actually while we wait for that, I want to quickly ask Tasteless and Artosis. We'll go to Artosis first. New faction still to be shown. Have you already locked in who you want to play, or are you very interested in anime catgirl waifus?
I was gonna say, yeah, it sounds like a great faction. Honestly, I started and I've played more games as Infernal, but when I went over and started playing some Vanguard, it gave me that Terran feel. And I mean, I've been a Terran player for 25 years, so I've been enjoying Vanguard more, to be honest. And so that's what I'm liking so far. But I'm withholding judgment, and I'll definitely try whatever Catgirl faction is coming out next.
All right. What about you, Tasteless? Where you going on that one?
I mean, I have not committed to one side yet. I started out like everybody else playing Vanguard because that's all there was. But I was, for the last but maybe 2 weeks, I've just been doing Infernal. I'm gonna try to have a buddy of mine come over and teach me Vanguard. But yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to the next faction, what's gonna come out. So yeah, I mean that's where I'm at.
All right. I think we figured out what the problem was. We can now head across to PartinG, and I think, fingers crossed, we should have the magical man himself to talk to. Okay, let's see if this works this time. PartinG, can you hear us?
Hello, Sugar Bears.
Hey, congratulations, buddy! Incredible performance. First of all, let me just quickly dive into that grand finals. How did you feel going into that one? What was your read on VortiX? Were you confident that this was going to be an easy win, should we say, or did you feel like this was always going to be a very close one?
통역해 주시면 될 것 같은데. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Translator?
Sorry, say again. Oh, translator's not speaking. Translator, can you hear us?
아, 아, Uh,
Okay, let's try this on simple questions.
I can
Hello,
answer
hello.
about. Okay, oh, okay, he back.
Sorry.
Okay.
My bad. I'll translate. 먼저 원차 선수 경기 굉장히 우승 그냥 축하드리고요. 이 경기가 이렇게 어려울지, 이렇게 그냥 어려운 경기가 됐을 거라고 예상하셨는지, 어떻게 생각하셨는지.
일단은 결승에서 그 볼틱스 선수가 생각보다 좀 까다롭더라고요. 그래서 좀 어려운 승부가 될 것 같았고, 일단 그리고 멘탈적으로 좀 계속 제 자신한테 그 좀 좋은 생각을 했어요. 이길 수 있으니까 좀 더 침착하게 하고 긴장하지 말고 여태까지 연습 열심히 했으니까 한번 내 자신 믿고 자신감 가지고 한번 해보자라는 생각으로 해서 이겼던 것 같아요.
So Parting said, on the final, VortiX was actually a bit more annoying and more technical, complicated to play against. So he thought it was going to be a difficult battle, difficult final. So he kept on telling himself, positive, good thoughts, good kind of giving him good mental. So he was like, all right, let's just kind of keep calm. Let's not get nervous. I've been practicing this a lot, so let's just play with high confidence, and let's get good result. And turns out he did get a good result.
And some of those games we saw what we were referring to as like bait plays. Was that always the plan because of how tough VortiX was? Did you feel like you had to do something very different, very surprising to throw him off?
그래서 게임 도중에 보틱스랑 경기 도중에 이제
네,
미끼를 던지면서 좀 낚는 게임을 이제 낚는 그런 플레이를 몇 번 하셨는데
네네.
그게 원래 계획된 건지 아니면 보틱스 선수를 인지하고서 좀 더 바로바로 살짝 직관적으로 바로
아,
하신 건지 물어보네요.
일단은 제가 이 게임을 거의 600시간에서 700시간 한 것 같아요. 그래서 하면서 많은 상황을 제가 좀 알고 있어서 상대에 맞춰서 제가 준비를 바로바로 바꿔서 했고, 네, 그 상대에 맞춰서 그냥 즉각적으로 바로바로 한 것 같아요. 맞춰서.
So Parting practiced this game, played it for about 600 to 700 hours now. So he's familiar with a lot of situations. He has a good feel of the game. So he was actually able to adjust and react to a lot of situation on the spot, without any too much of a preparation or too much of a plan ahead of time.
Okay. And I guess I want to get his wider feelings on the game. Like, we've just had a tournament on it, very early days. How does he feel about the direction of Stormgate, how it's being balanced, and what the future holds?
스톤게이트가 아직 굉장히 오픈 베타고 초창기인데 스톤게이트의 그런 개발 방향이나 이런 밸런스를 잡아가는 과정이나 이런 좀 초반 개발 상황을 보시면서 스톤게이트의 미래에 대한 어떤 생각, 이런 의견이 있으신지.
어, 일단은 이제 많은 사람들이 이제 프로스트 자이언트 그 스톤게이트에 대해서 좀 좋게 생각하시는 분도 계시고 좀 안 좋게 생각하시는 분들이 계신 걸 알고 있는데 근데 이 게임이 이제 나온 지 얼마 되지도 않았고 같이 이제 계속 피드백을 받아가면서 개발 중이기도 하고 근데 제 게임 안에서 해보면은 그 방향성이 느껴지긴 해요. 아, 이 개발자분들이 어떤 걸 하고 싶구나. 어떤 RTS를 만들고 싶구나. 그런 게 좀 느껴져서 진짜 재밌게 하고 있고, 그리고 미래가 더 저는 기대가 돼요. 많은 분들이 지금 실망하시는 분도 굉장히 많지만, 저는 프로스트 자이언트가 지금 굉장히 일을 잘하고 있다고 생각합니다.
So a lot of people have good and bad opinions about Frost Giant, but this game is still early days. It just came out very recently. It's still going through a lot of development from feedback from the players. And Parting himself thinks you know, he can really kind of get a feel of what the developers are trying to do with this game. He can really tell what kind of RTS they're trying to make, and he's really enjoying the game so far. So Parting is very excited about the future of this game. He's aware that a lot of people are disappointed about the game, but he has faith in Frost Giant, and he really thinks this game is going to be a good game in the future.
That's refreshing to hear. Tasteless, Artosis, have you got anything you want to ask Parting while we've got him here?
Sure. Actually, I wanted to check because Parting is obviously still a super high level StarCraft 2 player. He's playing a lot of Stormgate and has been pretty dominant in that. And obviously is a very popular streamer. So what is the future here for you, Parting? Are you planning on just continuing kind of streaming and playing on the side? Are you going to rededicate yourself to StarCraft 2? Are you kind of waiting for Stormgate to come out and maybe become the world champion in that game as well? What is the future for Parting?
아토시스가 일단 원 선수가 굉장히 아직도 스타크래프트 2에서 굉장히 수준 높은 굉장히 수준이 높은 플레이어고 그리고 스톤게이트도 지금 굉장히 열심히 하면서 지금 방 대회도 우승하셨고 방송도 많이 하고 있는데 이 미래를 어떻게 요네 선수는 지금 이제 이 상황에서 어떻게 미래에 하실 건지 이제 방송을 조금 뒷전으로 두고 게임에 집중을 하시는 건가 아니면 방송은 병행하시는지 뭐 스톤게이트 월드 챔피언을 목표로 하시는지 일단 원예 선수의 그런 방향이 어떻게 되는지 궁금하답니다.
Okay, first, I never ever betrayer to my fans, Sugar Bears. And mean is I will keep doing streaming and of course I want to be a world champion of Stormgate. And I finding my glory and then I will share my feeling with my fans. That's my purpose and my goal, life goal. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tasteless, anything you want to ask?
I guess just I'm curious to hear his thoughts on Jagged Maw and what he thinks of the map.
제기드 모라는 맵에 대한 의견을 물어보네요. 지금 아까 방송 중에서 밸런스 얘기 많이 나왔었고.
많은 분들이 이제 저 맵을 싫어한다고 생각하는데, 근데 저 맵은 좀 똑똑한 사람이 잘하는 맵 같아요. 그러니까 좀 머리 쓰는, 제가 왜 스톰게이트를 좋아하냐면, 이게 다른 이제 기존 RTS와 또 다른 RTS도 머리를 당연히 써야 되지만, 저 캠프, 이제 크립 캠프 때문에 약간 플레이들이 빌드 오더라든가 그런 게 많이 바뀌어요. 그래서 제 생각에는 좀 머리를 써야지 저 맵을 좋아하지 않을까, 똑똑한 사람이 저 맵 좋아하지 않을까라고 생각합니다.
So Parting is aware that a lot of people do not like that map, but he thinks the map it plays strongly to smarter players. The RTS in general obviously requires thinking, a lot of brain power, but he likes Parting likes Stormgate a lot because the creeps really affect the build order and change how you need to play, and he thinks Jack and Maw it really brings out that aspect of the game. So he actually likes that map a lot.
Wow. Okay. There we go. We have our answer from the champ. I think we've kept Parting long enough. Just a opportunity for him to say anything he wants to the fans, to everyone watching. Speak time.
마지막으로 팬들이나 이제 시청자들한테 하실 말씀 있으신지.
First of all, I'd like to thank to Frost Giant and EGC for giving me great opportunity, chance to win this tournament, and very grateful to my fans, Sugar Bears. I always want to repay to my fans. They always trust me, believe me, cheer me. They gave me big power and motivation. And also, thank to my team, new team, Aftermath. They trust me. And they have a good practice. My partner, his name is Diri and Albino. They helped me a lot. They didn't sleep and didn't eat like 24 hours. Practice for me. So very thank you to them. And I love you guys. And I love Frost Giant. I love Tasteless, Artosis, and Killer Vision. And I love you all. Peace.
Thank you, Parting. Much love to you as well. Congratulations, buddy. You go get some rest, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Adios.
Wonderful to hear from the champ himself. I like how he basically walks in, indirectly calls Artosis stupid, and then adios is out.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like that too. Thanks for pointing that out, Killer Pigeon, for anyone who may have missed that.
I mean, it's classic champ, isn't it? Right? You bring up
Uh-huh.
maybe a balance issue, just says get better. Just get better.
Says the infernal player. It's wonderful. I love it. This is just the story of my life for 25 years and hopefully another 25 as well.
Man. Hopefully Stormgate's gonna have a big part in it. I mean, it's time for the rounding thoughts on the tournament as a whole. I mean, we talked a little bit about how we feel at the start of the day. Now that we've seen enough games of Jagged Maw to remove all the hair from your head, Artosis, how are we feeling about the future of Stormgate as a competitive environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's super fun, and the more that you play, the more you find that you're able to do in the game, right? I think that is a very important thing. Like the multitasking stuff is starting to build up a little bit. You're seeing a lot more like drops and micro in different areas, different strategies coming out. And the thing is, it's so early that, you know, to start seeing that this early is very, very nice. And as more things get added in, I think we'll have more tools. I'm personally very excited about the future of Stormgate. I've been enjoying playing it a lot. I've been playing it a ton, watching so many games, casting games, and I think it's great so far. I'm looking forward to the future and seeing where they go next with it.
I love someone that's kind of highlighted there is the idea that it's very intuitive, right? Tasteless. I think that the cool thing that I always look for a game that I think can be incredibly successful is simple to pick up, but hard to master. And although it's still an RTS, although you're still in 1v1 and maybe you accidentally queue into PartinG on the ladder, the reality is, I think for a lot of people, what Frost Giant have done in the way they design this game and the nuances, the way that they design the UI as well, and the UX, they seem to want anyone to be able to pick up and play.
Yeah, I agree. I think you said it very well. I mean, it's easy to pick up, but almost impossible to master. And I've been having a lot of fun playing Stormgate. In fact, I know I'm hooked on a game where when I'm sleeping, I dream that I'm playing the game. Like that's how much it's inside my mind. But yeah, look, I mean, we don't even have tier 3 units yet. We don't have the third faction out. You know, we've had a couple maps that have been thrown together, but there's still so much more that's going to be unlocked here. So I don't know. Feels good, man.
It feels amazing, my friend. It's been an amazing experience having you both here, but I think you've earned a rest. I'm excited to see more of you in the future. I'm excited to see more from EGC and more from Frost Giant. But thank you, Tasteless and Artosis. I think it's time for me to do my ramble and close the show, but I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty more of you on the mic.
Thank you much, man. It's been great.
Thank you for having us. Cheers.
Absolutely wonderful to have the two lads in. Incredible grand finals. If you just tuned in and you missed it, that's right. PartinG took the dub. Absolute mad lad. Unstoppable in the end. Able to close it out in the 8th game with a 5-3 storyline. And well, if you missed the interview, go back. I think there was some interesting insights there. The man loves Jagged Maw a little bit too much, maybe for my liking as someone who's taking to the vanguards. But I think what we're seeing is an esport in its early days, one that's got so much still to offer. And I'm excited to be along for the ride. And I think I want to thank everyone that's made it possible. You know, EGC putting this $10,000 tournament together, which came out of their very own pocket, by the way. And of course, couldn't have been done without the assistance of Frost Giant to make sure that we had at least what we needed as a bare minimum to get a spectating tool go early on. And, you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about balance and getting things right and getting things perfect. But, you know, that's not where the beauty of an esports scene is, if I'm being totally real with you. If you think of all the great experiences you've had along the way, the memorable moments in so many grand games, it's the hardships, the way it builds itself up, even with the flaws existing, that makes a true champion in the esports world. And that's why I'm excited to see what Stormgate has in the future. I mean, this was just with 2 factions and 3 maps on rotation. Imagine where we're at when we've got 8, 9 maps, when we've got anime cat girls flying around our bases and lasering down everything with angelic wings. I'm giving away too much information about what's coming up for the game. But what I can tell you is I'm almost certain that EGC will be back. I will definitely aim to be back. I'm sure many of us will. Big shout out to all the casters as well. It was amazing to see us bring together faces from Warcraft, StarCraft, Age of Empires, and I'm sure there's a few places there I'm forgetting along the way. Same with the players as well. I think the beautiful thing we've got here is, a game that, as I said there, is maybe intuitive, easy for people to pick up. And I always like to compare it to something like a Valorant situation, right? All the people, I'm sure there's plenty in the chat that have looked at games like Counter-Strike and they've sat and gone, I'd love to play this, but I don't like the idea of just getting stomped on for 50 hours to figure out the basics. New game comes in, sets you up for a nice little reset, lets you get going again. And I think that's maybe what Stormgate's going to be for a lot of us. I think it's actually wonderful that they're focusing on the 1v1 as well as the co-op, the team game experience being different, even the single player. So if you guys haven't already, I do recommend following their page across on Steam, making sure that you are hearing all the deets they come out. And be sure to check out their Kickstarter. It's going to open up again on the 23rd of February, I believe the goal is going to be when we last got the update. So if you want to pledge there, get access to the beta, that's one way to do it. But I think it's time we bring it to a close, folks. It's been absolutely phenomenal. PartinG will be our first major Stormgate champion. The mad lad from Korea, he looked unstoppable from the get-go. And although some people were able to crack a few games away from him, dropping 5 overall, in the end, there was no denying the beast from the East. It's time to come to a close. You've all been absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully, we'll see more EGC. Hopefully, we'll see more of you soon. For now, farewell.